The scene opens. A celebration is happening in the castle of Luthradoris, the capital city of Laksoon, seasonal island, which contains all 4 seasons at once in different regions. They're partying, the monarchs are having drinks, they're sitting around the giant, glorious fountain. And then the water coming out of the fountain freezes, trickles in time, sputters, and then continues to flow. Pan camera back to the monarch, the king, the queen of Luthradoris, and they are jaws open. Their joy has turned to sadness, anxiety. They call for the great race at Laksoon. Hello, one and all. No, I'm not Brendan Lee Mullen. Welcome back. I'm so stoked that you're watching this video because in today's video, we are going to break down this campaign idea, which you can take, and if you subscribe, I may release as some kind of source material at some point that you can use in your own campaign. Now, what this is a island race campaign across 4 seasons. It's kind of like a mixture of Hunger Games and something that includes seasons. 500 Days of Summer, not sure. How I have it set up is that we have an island of Laksoon, and you can see here that there's summer, spring, fall, and winter, different areas of this island. And years and years ago, hundreds of people were called to this island by the 4 seasonal spirits. And these spirits called to them and they told them to come to this island. And they developed a society here on this island, which is mainly separated from the rest of the world that this exists in. And every 100 years or so, and I'll get into the or so, the monarchs of this great island nation of Laksoon, they call for a race that travels all the way from summer, spring, fall, and winter in order to be crowned champions and be given a seat as the royal guard for another century, right? And so all the people in this entire land, including foreign entities, and there's some political intrigue in here as well, all want to win this race. The race is for a team of 4 to 5 champions, aka your player characters, and those champions get to basically traverse this race, increase their skills, but basically test if they have enough prowess, both spiritual, emotional, physical, and like wisdom to get through all of the challenges. Now, in this realm, in the overworld here, we have the summer, the spring, the fall, and the winter, and each one has its own set of challenges and maybe different objects that you need to collect in that region, and you need to bring all of that to the final room in the winter region. And I'm imagining that this is going to be for player characters between levels like 10 and levels 15, because the idea is that it only happens every 100 years and that it's really a race of like centennial beings, right? So we're talking elves. I'm going to have some turtles in there. Really any kind of creatures that live very long times. Dwarves, maybe? I'm not sure if dwarves live a long time, but any creatures that live a really long time. And I think in the source notes, if at some point I publish this or release it, is that basically you have to be at least 80 years old to participate in the race. So this is really a race of champions. And there's going to be race mechanics where, you know, other teams are either ahead of you or behind you as you get through these challenges, collect the different pieces that you need, and make your way to the winter final room. Now, throughout it, because it's kind of a long race, it's not meant to be like a 1 week. It's like a month or 6 weeks or even 2 or 3 months of trials, challenges, because at the end of it, you and your family or your faction get to be the right hand of the monarch of this huge island nation of Laksoon, which is pretty cool. And let me show you this other cool thing. Inside of in each of the regions, you have animals that present differently depending on what region that they're in. So that's pretty cool. And so obviously there's going to be different monsters, and I'm working on some homebrew stuff as well as just like different monsters that show up in different plains and forests, etc. And that'll be really cool. And in addition to that, you have the social play, which will be navigating which challenges are real and which are villagers and townspeople coming out of the woodwork to convince your player characters that they need to go into special, they need to go into this forest and save a cat, whatever it is, because once they save the cat, then they have the knowledge to help them get whatever it is that they need in that region. And so this is gonna be really fun. And I suspect that they're gonna gain between 0 and maybe, 10 and maybe 13th level, 14th level during this expedition. And then they get to the winter room. Now, throughout it, they'll have been rolling and the other teams will have been rolling, and we'll see if they're the first ones there. If they are, great. If they're not, here's where the real juice comes into play. So, you know how I said that there were 4 seasonal spirits that called all these ancient beings to this realm? Well, let's flash back to the creation of Laksoon. And what we have is that years and years ago, in the beginning of time, there was the god Therisdon, the god of chaos and madness. And the other gods were trying to control Therisdon, because otherwise Therisdon was just going to destroy everything in space and time. Nothing was going to exist. It's donezo. We're finished. But guess what? There was another elemental force at play. So you had the gods, you had Therisdon fighting against the gods, and there was kind of head to head, but the gods couldn't seem to truly chain and control this god, Therisdon. The spirits of nature came into physical form, turned themselves into chains, and chained Therisdon. So basically, winter, fall, summer, spring, for each one of the limbs of this god. They locked Therisdon away in a time prison because they're seasoned spirits. So I felt like that made sense. So they locked Therisdon in this time prison, a little pocket almost outside of reality. But guess what? Where they locked him on the other side of that time pocket is Laksoon. And so what happens is, in this campaign, is that once your adventurers get to the winter room, the monarch shows up, teleports in or whatever. It's like, hey, the reason why we allowed you 4 or 5 to enter into the competition is this race is not to figure out who's going to be our right-hand person. The race is to find champions who the spirit gods or the nature spirits deem worthy to commune with them, and then reinforce the chains every 100 or so years, because basically Therisdon is trying and sending out mentally to his followers and his factions to become free from these chains. And so every 100 years or so, this is just like how long it takes, 4 or 5 adventurers, true champions, are sent to the underworld, which is basically the opposite world. I mean, it makes sense, of Laksoon. So it has an under summer region, under winter, under fall, under spring, which are these like mega intense versions of their counterparts. So in the summer region, so they go immediately from winter into under summer, and this is a scorching hot desert. You know, there's no water, and there are obviously creatures that thrive in that environment there to stop them, followers of Therisden, to stop them from reaching the time prison, where once they get there, they have to perform a ritual in order to re-secure the chains, re-secure Therisden. And in doing so, I've been working on some mechanics to work with like life force points. This is why I've made them so old, is that you have to be old in order to go, because during the ritual, you get like half your age's life force in life force points, and then the ritual kind of takes away at the life force points. And if you dip below your life force points, then you actually start to take damage, and it's a damage heavy ritual. That is the campaign. Basically, because it's a time prison, the real reason that they know to start the race is basically on the overworld, there are going to be these like time fractures, time slipping, time magic type stuff. And as they go through the journey, time is going to get weird, and they're going to have to sort of like, you know, pace themselves, and things are going to move around where they should have been, but they aren't anymore. Things are going to grow old really fast or slow down. And so I want to build a lot of that into the campaign as well. And so the monarchs, they start to see these time fragmentations where time freezes for a moment or skips or slows down or something strange like that. And then they call to adventure all of the champions of the realm to find the true champions who are worthy enough to go into the Underrealm, make it through again all 4 of the seasons in their worst, most intense presentation, and then reach the time prison, perform the ritual, save the entire universe from chaos and destruction. And if they do that, they step through the gate out of, or like the portal out of Underwinter, and then time sort of skips. So I'm imagining that they're having lots of like scrying happening, and so people are sort of watching the overworld race, because it's just like oh, this is a really great race. This is like a thing we watch all the time. Every year, every 100 years, is like a big celebration basically. But once they step through the portal of winter, in the final room of the overworld, basically time sort of moves differently in the Underrealm, and they're going to run into champions that have been down there for hundreds of thousands of years, which has actually felt like tens of thousands of years. And then when they step back into the Overrealm, time is going to compress again, and they will be left as the champions and the right hand of the monarchs, knowing what they know, and that every 100 years they have to save the world from a total chaos and destruction. I am going to release information about this at some point, but I hope you enjoyed this little like lore debrief D&D campaign setting that I've cooked up. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, please.